Verizon Home Internet can cost almost double the price of Visible Home Internet, depending on the plan you choose. Yet, both services use Verizon towers. So, after testing both side by side in the same house, I wanted to answer one question. Is Verizon actually worth paying more for? And honestly, the results, well, kind of surprised me a bit. Now, before we start, your internet performance will always depend on your location, tower congestion, signal strength, and even the time of day. So, based on this, your results might actually look, well, a little different from mine because of these cases. But this will still give you a very good real-world idea of how the two services actually compare. And this comparison is especially interesting because Visible is owned by Verizon. But Verizon Home Internet does have multiple premium plan tiers, while Visible keeps things much simpler with one straightforward home internet offering. And coming up in the video, I'll explain why the streaming quality may actually matter more than the actual speed that you get. But first, Verizon currently offers multiple 5G home internet plans depending on your address and availability. Their standard 5G home plan is generally targeted around speeds up to 100 megabits per second, while some areas can see up to 300 megabits per second. While their higher tier plans, like 5G Home Plus and 5G Home Ultimate, can offer even faster speeds. In areas with C-band, you would typically get speeds up to 150 megabits per second for the 5G Home Plus and up to 300 megabits per second for the 5G Home Ultimate. However, if you are in an area with millimeter wave, then you could actually see speeds up to 1 gig per second, plus additional perks in supported locations. Some of the higher tier Verizon plans also include things like longer price locks, whole home Wi-Fi equipment, better streaming quality, plus even more additional perks, depending on the tier. Now, with Visible, they take a completely different approach here. Instead of multiple complicated tiers, Visible just gives you one simplified home internet option. It's cheaper, easier to understand, and honestly, tends to feel more straightforward overall. But the big question becomes, are you actually sacrificing performance just to save money? So, let's talk about the actual speeds I personally experienced testing both of these services in the same exact house. Using the 5G Home Ultimate plan in my area with C-band, I consistently saw speeds around 300 megabits per second for the download. Now, the speeds actually got higher, but then were throttled back down to around the 300 range. While Visible consistently came in closer to around 200 megabits per second for the download. I also noticed the same here as well. The actual speeds were higher initially, but were then throttled back down to around the 200 range. Now, the upload was pretty interesting here. The upload speed on both services were actually pretty similar for me. Although Verizon usually landed more steadily around 20 megabits per second for the upload, Visible usually landing more closer to 15 megabits per second. But at times, Visible was actually able to get pretty close to the 20 megabits per second upload mark. And honestly, this is where things started getting interesting. Because while Verizon was faster for the download, Visible honestly didn't seem that much slower with everyday use. Streaming worked just fine, and browsing the internet also worked just fine. Even having multiple streaming devices connected at the same time, all worked surprisingly well. And honestly, at the end of the day, that is what matters. Just having a seamless experience, having the internet just work without having to worry about it. Now, one area people don't talk about enough is the streaming quality, because this is where Verizon's different plan tiers can actually matter. The Verizon 5G Ultimate plan does allow for higher streaming, up to 4K streaming support, depending on the network conditions, while the lower tiers are more limited to 1080p quality. Visible, on the other hand, generally caps streaming to around 1080p by default. However, one interesting thing is that many users bypass this limitation entirely by using a VPN. So, realistically, Depending on your setup, the streaming difference may not even matter that much. And honestly, I think the biggest difference between these services is less about the overall speed and more about consistency, prioritization, and the overall network treatment during congestion. Verizon's highest tier 5G Home Ultimate plan, if available in your area, is clearly designed for people who want maximum consistency, premium features, potentially better prioritization, and higher end streaming support. While Visible is more about simply give me good enough internet at the cheapest price possible. And this is where things get really interesting. Because if Visible is giving you around 200 megabits per second down, and Verizon is giving you up to 300 megabits per second down, then is that extra speed actually worth paying significantly more for every month? For some people, sure. For others, no, it's not. It can be worth it if you have a large household, you do lots of simultaneous 4K streaming, you simply are a heavy data user who uses multiple devices at one time, or you just simply want the best experience possible. But for average users, honestly, Visible may actually already be more than enough, especially for the price. So, after testing both of these side by side, here is my honest takeaway. Verizon Home Internet did perform better overall in my testing, especially for the download. And honestly, I expected that. But Visible actually performed much closer than I expected, considering the price difference. I honestly thought it would be throttled even more heavily, but my speeds stayed very consistent, close to the 200 megabits per second throughout the month, all throughout the day. And honestly, that is what surprised me the most. But now, I'd like to hear from you. Have you yourself tested Verizon or Visible Home Internet? And which one would you choose after seeing these results? Let me know down in the comments. And maybe you came across this video because you yourself have Verizon 5G Home Internet and you actually didn't know that there was a much cheaper option out there for Verizon service. So, if that's you and you're interested in learning more about Visible Wireless cell phone service and exactly how it compares to Verizon, I have that video right over there for you to check out next. So I'll see you over there.